Thank you so much for joining us again at the Heavy Lifting Podcast. Today, we have the honor of being joined by Tukker at the Moving Guys, Alabama. Tukker, thank you so much for joining, and please introduce yourself
Absolutely.
to the audience.
Yeah, my name is Tukker Watson. I own the Moving Guys, Alabama, and we are located in Enterprise, Alabama.
That's amazing. And from all the
Okay.
research I've done in South Alabama, you seem to be the guys to go to. You're probably one of the biggest moving companies in all of Alabama. How long have you been in business? What was it like when you started? How did you get to where you are now, Tukker?
Well, we've been in business for about 7 years now. And I started out doing this when I was in my, I don't know, late teenage years, early 20s, I want to say. I worked part time at AutoZone. And one of my supervisors there, he was telling me about extra ways that he made money coming up. And he said, "Hey, you can rent a U-Haul and get you a couple friends and move people." And I was like, "Move people? What does that mean?" And so he gave me the breakdown of it. So after that, I kind of got the idea to start helping people move. And I worked during the day at another little job, and in the afternoons or weekends or whatever I could find the time, I was known as the guy that'll help you move. You know what I mean? I started out, the customer would rent the U-Haul, and me and a couple friends would provide the labor, and, basically just a couple guys helping out. And throughout the years, I ventured off in a couple other things. Other little things, just trying to, see where I fit in the world. And um, about 2019, 2020, I had just gotten fired from yet another job. I spent time in the car business working as a service writer, and it paid the bills, and that was fine and all. But I don't know. I'd always had this drive and this sense of I need a bigger purpose, and I need to do something where I feel like I'm helping someone in a transitional stage of their life. And I didn't really want to have like a boss telling me what time I could go to lunch for the rest of my life. So I always knew I wanted to start a business. I just didn't know where that was going to be. So, from working different jobs and then work helping out. So helping out people move on the side. And then about 2020, like I said, I got fired from my last job. And, I said, what's next? Kind of, crap, what next? And then, hey, it's exciting. You don't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
So at that point, I just said, "Hey, I'm gonna really dive in on this moving stuff." I said it seems to be something that I've gotten pretty well at. And I said, I mean, to myself, I've got nothing to lose, so why not just give it a shot? So at that point, I think I had like I don't know, 600, $700 maybe, to my name. And I took that instead of paying my rent that month. I went out and I bought a decent amount of hand tools, stuff you need, screwdrivers, whatever, drills. Bought me a couple good dollies from Harbor Freight,
Nice.
um, and invested in, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 blankets. Not a whole lot at the time, just enough stuff to where I could fit all of it into the back of my broke down car that broke it broke down when you put it in reverse, and you had to like get out and tinker with it to get it going. And it was definitely, I don't know, it was something. um so from there, I mean, I just really dove in and did the work. I didn't focus on marketing or didn't focus on nothing. I just doing the work. Got leads from basically word of mouth, and kind of created a reputation within the community. And the next thing I know, fast forward to when we really took off. I'm gonna say probably about going 2 years, 2 to 3 years ago is when we really just went from, hey, these are guys that move to, hey, that's the moving guys, like they carry some weight. And, you know, kind of a correction to what you said earlier. We're not really the largest group here in our town. I would say we're not the smallest either. We're more like a medium-sized moving company.
Okay.
Me, and then I have 6 full-time employees and a handful of part-time people also. Um, so backtrack a little bit. We about 2 years ago, we were just the phone was ringing off the hook, and I said, I really need to kind of get this really structured and going in the next direction. So the first thing I did, I met with a marketing professional that built me a website, got my Facebook page going, got my socials really good, and all those things have really, excuse me, all those things have really helped out a whole lot as far as growth and continuing on and everything. Um, but one thing that I've really noticed that has really helped out us out a whole lot, and I feel like it's for everyone. Definitely word of mouth. I was in a meeting with my team this morning, and I was telling them, word of mouth can help you or it can hurt you. You know what I mean? And that's really really kind of up to you. You know. So what I mean by that is, if you do a bad job, that customer is going to talk to their friends and say, "Hey, this company does a bad job." But hopefully, if you do a good job, they're going to tell 15 other friends, "Hey, these are the guys you want to move them." Um, so kind of my strategy, however you say that word. We kind of backed off on the amount of customers that we take. And I say that meaning we still work as much as possible, but kind of we focus on maintaining a certain level of customer experience. That way, doing that, servicing that one customer the right way will do a lot of work for us. Most importantly, it makes the customer happy, which is only reason you should be in business, in my opinion, because that's the only way you're going to get paid to continue to grow. Unless there's just something I don't know. Um, and they're going to tell 15 other friends. 7 of them might call you, and you might land a job with 3 of them, but then the process repeats itself. You know
It's
what I mean?
exponential at the end of the day, right? Because you do such a good
Exactly.
job with those 3 friends who you do end up closing, they refer another 15 people, and it just keeps on going and going.
It keeps on going and going, and, until you get to the point where, a year later, you're like, "Well, yeah, so and so told me about you," and, I'm like, "I can't remember who that is," but if I see their face, I'm like, "Yeah, I would know 'em." And, we just try really hard to put customer service first. We try to take care of people's stuff, and, that is seemed to be a good business model for us.
I can tell by everything you've been telling me so far is that it's the customer first all the time. I think at the very, very beginning of the podcast, you mentioned you were looking for something to do after you were just let go in 2019, 2020, and you wanted to be able to help people, especially in a transitionary period in their life. And that's where you started. And I can tell by everything you do, I'm sure that's how you help people as well. Is at the end of the day, moving is an industry where you're going to be like that. It's very stressful. It's difficult times in people's lives, whatever it is the reason that they're moving. And when you help them with other businesses, when you help someone, you bring a smile, it goes so far. But when you're helping someone who's in such a difficult part of their life and you really go above and beyond, just like you said, word of mouth is going to be tenfold. Now, I'm curious, do you have any software or anything which helps you with your word of mouth? At the end of a move, do you ask the customers to refer other people to you, or does that sort of just happen organically?
We definitely have some systems in place. So, when we finish up at a job after we're doing our after we're done with our walkthrough, either myself or my project manager, they'll say, "Hey, we really appreciate this opportunity to be of service. Out of everyone else that you could have called, you chose us, and that really means something to us," which it does. And I always say, listen, I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on, but if you could, number one, refer us to a couple of your friends or family, that would be great. But secondly, if you could check out this link to my Google page and give us a Google review of what your experience was, or to our Facebook page. So I do that, and then also on our we use a CRM called Jobber,
Mhm.
and when you send out that last final invoice, there's a link there at the bottom that they can click, and it gives them the option to review on Google and our Facebook page as well.
That's amazing. So it seems like you have a lot of systems in place that not only do you do a really stellar job, but then after you do that stellar job, Google knows about it because Google reviews. And by the way, I saw you just hit 400 reviews, which in such a small population as enterprise is really, really amazing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you,
But not
thank you, thank
only,
you.
of course, not only do you get that review, but then you also got the referrals afterwards. And I think people underestimate that sometimes in the moving world is just asking for something. If you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no, right? And
Absolutely, absolutely.
you've done a really good job already. You've already done all of the hard work. It's been a 4 hour move, a 6 hour move, an 8 hour move. Just ask at the end and it will always go a really long way. Do you by any chance know what percentage of your customers end up giving you reviews or ballpark?
That's a good question. That is one percentage I don't know off the top of my head, but unfortunately, or not unfortunately, how do I say it in a nice way? Not as many as I would like. At the end of the day, I mean, I would say if we get 10 jobs in a week and we ask all 10 of those customers, 3 to 4 will probably end up leaving their review. Um, so I mean, it's still a good number, but as everything, it could always be better.
There's always
Excuse me.
room for improvement. And as a
Absolutely.
businessman, it's always that way. It's how do you take one step ahead of the next? So that's amazing. And I appreciate you sharing all of those insights. I'm sure that's going to be super
Hmm.
helpful for the audience on how they can generate more reviews and have more repeat customers. Now, Tucker, I want to bring you back to the very beginning. It sounds like you took the ultimate bet on yourself. You had $700 to your name and you said, okay, instead of paying rent this month, I'm going to invest in equipment. My car's just about doing the job. What did that look like? Because I know you do a really good job when it comes to moving. It sounds like from the get go, you bought the right equipment. For someone who is either just starting a moving company or they don't know what equipment to get, what is like your go to if a truck goes out, it needs all of these things?
Well, that's a really good question, and I'll give you a really good answer in return.
Thank you.
Um, so you always want to make sure you have hand tools. You can go to Harbor Freight and get a drill, some screwdrivers, a wrench. Um, you know, different things that you think, oh, hey, you may need this, but you would hold on, what am I trying to say? You need to have it, but you don't know when you're gonna need to have it. Because trust me, there will be a time where you've got some kind of screw that you've never seen before on a bed, and that happens a lot because every piece of furniture probably is from a different place or something like that. So just, the basics and then a couple things that aren't basic. And then, if you're just starting out, you can get you a couple of those like red dollies, hand trucks. They're like 40, $50 a piece. And then they have four-wheel carts and they have other things too that, if you don't have a lot to invest in, you can get stuff just to get by there. Um, and then I would say, most importantly, you need to make sure you have a lot of moving quilts. I would really invest in those because, your number one objective should be to make sure you're protecting people's stuff. And then once you get money from protecting their stuff, you can reinvest it in the business as you go. And I mean, I started with just tools in the back in my trunk, and now I've got 2 storage units, 2 trucks with toolboxes, a trailer with a toolbox, you know what I mean? So as you progress, those will be things that you particularly don't really worry about. And as far as like trucks and stuff go, so what I did was, when I found out that you could get a U-Haul moving truck, you know what I mean? That blew my mind at that time because I was like, oh, you're kidding, at such a cheap rate, also, you know what I mean? So me myself, we actually have three enclosed trailers, and then two trucks. And then everything else, we kind of contract out our rental trucks with either U-Haul or Penske. And I'll tell you why on that. Everyone is like, oh, you should buy your own truck. You should buy your own truck. And yeah, at some point in time, I do plan to when I find the right deal. But right now, it's working for us. So why try to fix it? Why have that overhead and that expense if you don't necessarily need to? Um, And if you think about it, you rent it. I usually rent mine for the week or for the month or something like that. And, if if a tire blows, I don't have to worry about it. That's on U-Haul to get it fixed. If it needs to be serviced, I don't have to set up the scheduling to get that done. I don't have to pay to get that done. You know what I mean? It's ultimately taking a big responsibility off of you. So all you really have to do is worry about making sure you have a licensed driver to drive it, and your insurance, your commercial insurance, is going to cover it on top of the insurance they already have. So that is one thing that's been a really big part of our growth is taking out overhead when we can.
Hmm.
I've noticed a lot of people, they want to dive right in. They want to get $100,000 truck. They want $1,000 a month office payment, and before you know it, your overhead is, um, you know, um, 10, 15,000 a month, and you're barely breaking in 3,000 a month sometimes.
Yeah.
Because there's something you really need to think about also here. Yeah, during those busy times, you got plenty of money coming in to pay for that overhead. But however, something I've learned the hard way in this industry, those slow times do come. And that
Hmm.
is something to think about, and not saying that it's always going to be that way. Sometimes back 2 or 3 years ago, my slow time is very different from what it is to now. The bigger you get, the less that slow time will have on you, the less impact it will have on you, but it's still there.
Hmm.
And so it really just depends on what kind of business mindset you have. Either you want to keep paying those monthly payments during that time, or you're like, hey, I don't have this overhead. I can take this money, I can reinvest it back in the business on something else, like marketing or training for your team or uniforms, tools. You know what I mean?
I think it's an
So
amazing sentiment. Is a lot of people, as soon as they see a little bit of success, they're like, okay, how can I expand really fast? Let's get a new truck. Let's get an office space, just like you said. And then the
yeah,
overhead skyrockets. And it's just
yeah,
like, okay, you used to have 80% profit margins. Now you have 15% profit margins in the busy times. And when it's slow, you're losing money. So it's definitely something worth mentioning. And for all your audience listeners out there, scaling smart is the best way to go about it. Do things incrementally. Make sure you run the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I love the numbers. So look at what you're already spending on everything. Look at how much you're bringing in on average. And then, like you said, Tucker, when is the right time? Of course, you're going to get another box truck or whatever it is. But right now, you're just taking it slowly bit by bit. And actually, you've given me so many questions, but you said you mainly rent from Penske and U-Haul. I know another big player in the space is Ryder. Why do you stick with Penske and U-Haul? And do you have a preference between them?
Well, I definitely prefer U-Haul, and I will tell you why. And a lot of people probably overlook this, but it's everything that you need right there. I've got two storage units that I keep my stuff in. Okay. I also can go right to the front desk and get any material that I may not have ordered. I'm like, oh, I forgot table. I can go there and get it. And also the third one is the biggest one. I think while we are there in the mornings getting our stuff or in the afternoons dropping our stuff off, because I park one of my trailers there and one of my trucks sometimes. But that creates a few opportunities for people to say, "Oh, you know what? I see, the moving guys, let me jot that number down," and, because they're gonna need help moving in that storage unit or moving out or, whatever the case may be, and it's just kind of an all-in-one stop here in our town for us, and I can't speak for all the other ones, but the one over here that I use, I mean, it's good customer service. I've been dealing with them for a long time, and the manager, I could text her right now, and she'll find me a truck if I need a one-way drop off or something, and so that's kind of where I have loyalty to them. Ski, we will use them sometimes if the situation arises where we might need a lift gate or maybe you need the space without the grandma's attic. I'm not sure, you know what that is?
Hmm.
But very rarely because Penske has a 28-foot truck and U-Haul has a 26-foot truck with that grandma's attic in the top. And in my opinion, I mean
Mm.
everyone and their brothers are going to disagree with me on this,
But you
and that's
prefer the
okay.
26, you can fit more in
I
it.
You can fit more in it with the 26, yes, with the grandma's attic. And everyone does everything different, and that's fine. But you can definitely do that, and also those things are really good on gas. Um, as long as you don't got them loaded down too terribly, you're going to save a lot of money on fuel efficiency, and which just goes back to being mindful of your overhead and what you're spending and all that good stuff.
Share your sentiment, and I'm actually so glad you've mentioned this because we've had so many podcasts already, and this is the first person you are who's like really loved the U-Haul. My brother and I used to have our own moving company, and we loved U-Haul over all the others. It's the easiest to get into, and especially if you have a commercial account. I want to just touch on a couple things you mentioned. First of all, you're building a relationship with the people at U-Haul. So they will always take great care of you. You bring in the truck, you take good care of them, they take care of you, which is really huge. And like you said as well, this is something which a lot of people forget is if you forget your supplies, who has all the supplies on deck? Whether that's you need tape, whether you need to rent an additional dolly, uh, whatever it might be, shrink wrap. Maybe you need another TV box, anything like that. Especially if you're at a neighborhood, not a neighborhood dealer, but one of the larger dealers with U-Haul, they're going to have everything you need. So that's just a really big bonus. And I like what you mentioned as well about the storage. If you need somewhere to store stuff, store it at U-Haul. You don't need to spend extra time taking your truck to the storage, then to the client's house. You just do it all in one location. So
Yep.
I'm happy to hear that you also have such a good experience of U-Haul. My brother and I, we loved U-Haul, and it's almost a shame we don't have the moving company anymore. So we don't go to see the people there, but we built relationships over those years with all those people there. They took care of us and we took care of them. And I also like to hear that you also get business sometimes at U-Haul. Like you said, people are moving. Maybe they think it's going to be easier than it really will be. Then they get there, they see you, they know you've got your expertise, and you get some additional clients from there. So super happy to hear that you've had also such a great experience with U-Haul. The only downside I personally found with U-Haul was when you're doing medium to long distance. You can always shop around if you're renting a truck for a long distance and you just want to do a one way. What I found with the medium distance, if I'm doing like 200 miles or something, I found I got better rates with the riders over the U-Hauls. But of course, I'm just highlighting that so the audience knows there's lots of different
Definitely.
options out there. You're going to be happy with any of them, but I'm glad you liked U-Haul just as much as us. Now, something you mentioned earlier as well, Tucker, which I found interesting. You said early on, and at one point when your business really changed around, I think it was around 2023, 2024, you got in touch with someone who does marketing in your local area and they set up your website properly and they also did some social media stuff. I've already checked out your social media. You're very active on there. I'd love to talk to you about your approach with social media and how you go about doing that and how you work it seamlessly into your workflow. Because I can see you're posting multiple times a week and a lot of people seem to struggle with that. So, how do you do such a great job?
Well, I mean, like I was in a meeting this morning with my team, and I told them, you get into this life what you put out of it. You know what I mean? So that is a loaded statement kind of, but I look at it as if, you know, my income and my team's income depends on me being proactive. So I want to do as much as I can to make sure that our phone are ringing and we're getting as many opportunities as possible. So posting on social media and being consistent with that is a very big part of it. I've not always been that way. I kind of was just like, oh yeah, we'll post once a month or something, and you know, back in the early days when I was just like, this doesn't do anything. But, when I really sat down and decided to get consistent with it, and that really started when I hired my marketing agency to help me with everything. I was already kind of on the way of doing a better job with it, but that really helped. And, she just reminds me to like make sure I'm getting content, make sure we're posting. And then, when I really learned a little bit about social media, because before got really successful with this, I mean, Facebook was just, it was just, I don't know, it was just Facebook. You know what I mean? You just got on there to see who was arguing with who that week. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when it got popular, people were like advertising and stuff. And, I'm like, okay, hey, maybe I need to do this a little more. So, I forced myself to kind of work it into my everyday thing, whether um, I filmed a couple calls with customers. I filmed me in the truck. Really, I got this GoPro here, and I'm the kind of person, sometimes it takes me to make a kind of a purchase to make me like commit and really
Mm,
make sure I'm getting my money out of something.
I like that.
So this guy was like, I don't know, a couple $100 at Best Buy. It came with all kind of little gadgets and stuff. And, I just set it up when me and the crew are working, and it creates videos, and it's a lot easier than you think, to edit it. I mean, they've got so many apps and so many different things on the phone these days where literally all you have to do is just film the content. You can put it in one app. I use CapCut, I think, is what we use, and that edits it. Or you can put it on TikTok and edit it, and then you post it on Facebook. Share it to your story. Make sure you share it to your story. Apparently, that is a big one. I've been told that's key. And then, also creating the reels and sharing it to different groups. And, you know, one thing about it, you don't want to be that guy that's like posting something and tagging 100 different people in something. I learned that's kind of, I don't know, cheesy is the best way to say. Um, just let it flow, just let it happen naturally. You know what I mean? Of course you want all the shares possible, but don't be that guy that's forcing people to share your stuff. Just post it, and, every once in a while say, hey, yeah, you guys, if you don't mind, just share it. Um, but if you could just be proactive with it, it definitely is a game changer, because I get calls all the time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well we saw you on Facebook. We came across your Facebook page, and we saw you on Google, and we see this and we see that." And it posting and taking the content it's basically, I don't want to say it's free, because it's going to cost you a little bit of time and effort, but other than that, it's free money that if you're not using it, you're just throwing it away. You know what I mean? You're creating opportunities while you're doing that. You know what I mean? And you just never know what being proactive and creating content could do for you. You know what I mean? I mean, you could land a customer that's like, "Oh, hey, well, I got this $30,000 project," or this whatever the case may be. Um I'll give kind of a key example. It's really important to stay on top of your SEO and all that, and I've just learned that in the last couple years. But it's really important to, because someone in what's the towns? Sheboygan, Wisconsin found us on Facebook, or maybe it was, how does my marketing lady say it? She found us on Google first, is where the customer found us, verified us on the Facebook page, and then called And a year later, we were moving her and all of her family, three different families.
Wow.
Well, it's one family, but three different set. Well, however you want to say it. We moved them down from Wisconsin down here to Alabama. And we would have never got that client if we weren't being proactive on Google, answering the phone, being proactive on Facebook. You know what I mean? Because I mean, if they don't see you, why would they call you? You know what I mean? And also, that kind of does a lot of the work for you. If you're taking pictures of what your work is doing, excuse me, and you're sharing your reviews, and you've got your reviews on your Google page, you know, of course, you want to maintain a little bit of salesmanship just because, but you don't have to be like, well, let me give you this 15-page script of why you should go with us. And if also, just for some people, if you're having to do that to every customer, maybe you don't want every customer if you're having to do that. But that's another story. So yeah, just I can't preach it enough. You know what I mean? All my guys, they take pictures and send them in to me. They film themselves wrapping stuff,
Amazing.
and you just have to get serious about it and be proactive, and and then the rest just kind of follows.
There's so much I want to highlight there because, well, first and foremost, I think this is a really easy place for people to level up in the moving industry because a lot of people aren't doing enough with social media. And there's a statistic which I love, which is, and this varies, of course, from industry to industry, but the average sale takes 14 different touch points. Now, of course, in the moving industry, this might be less, but you talked about a perfect example of this. First, they see you on Google, that's one of their touch points. Then they see you on Facebook, that's another touch point. Maybe they see your truck and it's wrapped on the side of the road, that's another touch point. And the more places you can touch them when it comes to marketing, the more likely they are to, A, just like you said, be an easier sale, but they also will be more likely to convert. And I think people sleep on that in the social media world all the time. And like you said, I think, so correct me if I'm wrong here, you do Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Is there anywhere else you upload to as well?
No, that's it. Yeah.
Amazing. And one of the other things you've done, which is amazing, and I do the same thing, I like to put a money barrier between me and my goals because I know that if I invest in something, I'm going to be more likely to do it. And what this also
Absolutely.
does, which you've done perfectly, is you make it frictionless. So by getting that GoPro, you've just made it one step easier for you. Okay, we'll take the GoPro out on every move. We can just set it up. We can get some footage of us loading the truck or wrapping something. And when you get rid of that friction, it really, really goes a long way. Now, with your social media, do you have a systematic approach of I want to be posting this day, and this day, and I want to focus on this specific content? Or do you just try and get as much out as possible and keep it to a high level?
Well, a little bit of both of those actually. So I have a marketing firm. It's called Marketing Navy, and she and her team have a system in place to where they systematically post things at different times and different content and different, whatever the case may be, whatever her plan is that term or that week, they do that. And then there's me on the other side just posting everything else. That way we're kind of, we're getting as much coverage as possible.
You're getting it on both sides of the spectrum too. You have very systematic stuff, and then you're just also, and that's the thing people forget is if you just pick up the phone and take a quick video, it can be a 15-second video, but you can see 300 people viewing that. These days, people think
Yeah.
300 isn't much, but if these are all
Yeah.
people who are potentially moving in your area, that's 300 potential clients who have just seen a 15-second video, like you said. And by the way, I love this. CapCut, for all you people watching, is a great place to edit your stuff. It makes it super easy. They have a free version, they have a pro version. A pro version is cheap, it's like 20 bucks a month or something. So I appreciate those insights. That's really, really great. Now, when it comes to marketing, I know you love word of mouth. Is there any other marketing that you do, or has that really been everything you've done? And of course, social media as well. Do you do any paid ads? Do you do anything like that? Do you work with local realtors in the area? What else are you doing for marketing?
Well, I work with a lot of local realtors, and how that happens, you're listing that you come up on an estimate. I ran into one realtor, and the next thing I know, all of her team is recommending me. And then I've got others that we work with. Maybe I don't know, like 10 to 15 different realtors between Enterprise and Dothan, which is our two. Well, we service all kind of areas, but they're the main little areas right here in our area. So realtors, and then we give out these T-shirts and hoodies to anyone that'll take them. Both of my trucks are wrapped. All of my trailers are wrapped. Each of them have the phone number, of course, the name, and then one of my trucks actually has a QR code that you can scan. It's
Cool.
on the tail. It's on the tailgate. So if you're coming up at a red light, and you look up and you're in the passenger side or probably in the driver, whatever the case may be, you can actually take your phone and zoom in on that QR code, and it scans it, and it brings up our website. I know that.
That's awesome.
Excuse me. And then Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and I don't really do any paid ads. We've discussed doing them in the past, but I tried those a couple years ago when it first came out, and I've researched the paid ads, and I'm not 110% against it. I haven't seen enough information to be like, okay, yeah, let me really do this. And I guess because we're really organically trying to create views and stuff, so I mean, I just hadn't really seen the point in trying any paid ads.
That's reasonable, and it's always fascinating because I speak with moving company owners every single day, and it's nice seeing that there's no one funnel which works, right? It's not like only this works and it might change a year from now. There's lots of different things which work, and like you see, you get leads from different places. You get them from word of mouth, you get them from social media, you get them from people scanning the tailgate of your truck, which I love, by the way. I've never heard that one before, but I know that Google Ads and LSA, they work, and it's just a matter of when do you want to start implementing them? Like you said, you're not 110% against them. At the moment, what you're doing is just already working. And that's something I truly believe in, is be a master of what you do. So what you've done perfectly is you haven't said, okay, let me do 10 different marketing strategies and do a really bad job at them. The first one you did
Yeah.
was word of mouth and referrals and reviews, and you did an amazing job at that. And then you found someone in the space to do your social media and help you out with that, and you've gone really good at that. So that's really impressive. Now, I'm curious with the QR codes. I know you can often track metrics and stuff. Do you know at all how many people are scanning that QR code in the back of your truck? That's fascinating.
That's a good question. I'm sure the my team that does the website, I'm sure they have that broken down. They usually have a whole bunch of fancy words for me, and I'm just like, okay, great. And I'm like, yeah, my phone's been ringing, so that's all I know.
That's amazing. You've mentioned a couple of times as well that you work very closely with your team, and you do meetings. What does that look like on the back end? Because you said you've got 6 people full time and you've got some part time people as well. Do you do weekly meetings to make sure everyone's in line? Are you still actively involved in the business day to day? What does all that look like?
Well, I want to be as actively involved as possible. So if I can, 1 to 2 days a week, I try to be out in the field with my team.
Amazing.
Might not be all day, maybe it might be for an hour or 2 hours, but I try to do that on a Monday so I can check in on everyone after the weekend, because you invest a lot in your team. They're each of one of them is an investment. So you always want to make sure, hey, you're doing all right, everything go okay this weekend. And then, you can kill two birds with one stone. If they're on a job and you need to go check in, or, have a chat for the week, it kind of sets the tone for the week. You're like, hey, we talked to the boss already.
Hmm.
He's laid out his expectations for the week. And, I feel like a lot of people, they're when after they grow a business, they're in such a hurry to get away from it. They're like, "Oh, yeah, I've had a little bit of success. Now I'm headed to the Caribbeans,
Let
and
me run to the
don't call
hills.
me." And a lot of people preach on if you can't step away from the business, then you got a job or, whatever the case may
I know the
be.
expression you're talking about, yeah.
You know what I mean? And at some point, I kind of agree, and I really kind of disagree with it. I feel like, yes, you should want to grow, and you should want to, be able to lead your team and do stuff, but you also still need to be as actively involved as possible. At least I know I'm going to be. And sometimes there might be situations where, hey, my newest crew leader, he hadn't been on the job, maybe about a year now. So but still, even if whatever the case, there might still be something they've never seen before, or even I've never seen. Like, hey, this gun safe is heavier than the customer said, and we're not exactly sure about this particular turn, or hey, this is going on. Can you? I want my team to know, like, they could reach out to me, and I'm going to be on the way, and I'm going to try to figure it out. And just like if I send them out of town to do an unload or a moving job or whatever the case may be, and it's one of those where they're going to be back later on in the day, I don't just go home. I wait at the office until, hey, they've made it back, and you know, because what if a tire blows out or what if something happens? You know what I mean? I need to be ready to go and help them or help get the whatever the case may be. Um, because I feel like a lot of business owners, they kind of want to shift all their responsibility over to the person that's in charge. And that's okay. Some of those responsibilities you do, but at the end of the day, this is still your business. You know what I mean? It's still your name and your reputation on the line. So, my opinion, you just need to be as proactive as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And
I love all of that, and I think it's a perfect way of leading by example. There's a couple things I wanted to touch on there because there's the saying, if you can't leave your business, then you just have a job that you're working for. You're not actually having a business. Now, what it sounds like by you is if you wanted to go on vacation for 2 weeks, the team would be very competent. They could take care of all of it. But what you do is you still bring that personal level. And I'm sure this is why your people stay around so long and you have people who are willing to work for you because you're a good person. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure your team is taken care of. Now, does that mean you're on every single move helping out? No. But just like you said, when they need your help, if they have a long move or something, you've been there before. You know what it feels like to be on the back end of an 8 or a 10-hour move and then to get back. It's nice to have you there. So you're just helping support your team. And I think that is true. That's something people often forget when they're training their team members is that is how you get really, really loyal people is you go above and beyond for them. And it doesn't mean necessarily doing lots of hours. It just means being intentional and really taking care of your guys. And I like as well that you do that Monday morning meeting often by the sounds of it is it's a great way to set the week. We all need to be goal setting and all this sort of stuff, but it's a good way of just very gently being like, I'm here. If you need me, I'm here to help. Let's go ahead and look at what we want to do this week and do it that way. So I appreciate you sharing all of that. I think weekly meetings are astonishing and you can do it more often if you like, but I think once a week, I think you said you do it more or less twice a week that you see your guys. It's a great cadence to be doing that. So appreciate you sharing all of that, Tucker. Now, something I'm curious about, you mentioned this earlier, slow season, and you said as your company grows, you you have less of those ebbs and flows, right? You have less variance. What's the slow season like for you guys, and how do you even out your moves across the year? Because I know a lot of moving companies struggle with slow season. What do you do so that that doesn't affect you as much or affects you less?
well, what we've kind of started to do is, in the last, I'm going to say probably 2.5 years, when that slow season does come, we will run a skeleton crew one day, skeleton crew the next, and then by Wednesday or Thursday, it's probably a job. More than likely, it might be a job where everyone is needed. So it's kind of like a case by case situation. Which is a lot of the moving business. Like 4 to 5 years ago, slow season. I mean, we just didn't. I mean, it was just is what it is. We would have 1 to 2, maybe 3 jobs a week, and but now it's more of a okay. Hey, we notice that it's slow, but it's not as bad as it was.
Gotcha.
So I know I've made it a long-winded answer, but, it all boils down to what needs to be done. We just kinda create different schedules for different people
Yes,
and, which is works out in ways because you learn to find employees that, you know what I mean, they can survive those times, you know what I mean? They use that time to, I don't know, hang out with their family, hang out with their friends, or rest. And then, with some of my long-term people, they've been with me long enough to know they're like, "Hey, this is gonna be over soon. Let's rest." And I've also kinda instilled with them financial discipline with their money.
I love that.
Um, I'm saying, "Hey, don't go blow your paycheck this weekend because slow times are coming." And I just kind of reinforce that to everyone. And does everyone listen to it? Probably not. But at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, I know I've done my part to try to tell them how to make it.
So, okay, so that's great. So you stay pretty lean during the slow season. You said you run skeleton crews and you do all of that. And we spoke about this earlier as well, is you don't have all of that overhead with extra trucks and all of that stuff. So that's one way as a business owner. Now taking care of your guys as well. I'm really glad you touched on that as well, is teaching them financial discipline. Being a business owner doesn't just mean you're giving people jobs, but oftentimes you're also a mentor. Often you're going to be older than the people that you're working with as well. And I love that. I remember at some of my first jobs I ever worked, uh, shout out to them. They also did lessons maybe once a month or something on different things, whether this was investing or whatever it was. But it doesn't need to be much. It can just be simple. Like you said, slow season's coming up. Give you guys a heads up 3 months before. You're going to get your weekly or your bi weekly paycheck. Make sure you put some of it aside so that you are ready for that. And then that allows them rather to be freaking out during that slow season. Like you said, spend more time with family, invest in other things which are important to them. So I actually haven't heard that approach before, but I really like it. It's just instill them some discipline and some financial discipline. And that goes a really long way. So that's amazing. Now,
Absolutely.
when it comes to moves, I imagine you take on all sorts of moves. I'm curious because in your area, I think you guys are near to a military base. Do you do a lot of military moves?
Yes and no. We do a lot of loads only and unloads for those customers. There is a military base on here, and one of our competitors, I think they have kind of a locked in contract with them, and they seem to get a lot of that business, but we get enough to you know, be current out there, I assume, because people still say, "Oh yeah, well you help so and so," and all this, that, and the other. And then a lot of military people also here, they live off the base. So it just depends. I mean, last summer, I want to say, if I can think back correctly, I think we did like 36 military moves, and that was a mixture of full service moves, packing only, unloading, So we get a lot of it, and we just kind of take it as it comes.
Gotcha. That's something I'm really fascinated about because having our own moving company, we do the same thing. We sometimes helped people load their moving stuff in, military people, that is, move their stuff into storage, or we did partial stuff with them. But I know you can sometimes land military contracts where you're a vendor specifically for the military. And I was very curious if you had taken a dive into that. That's something I'm, of course,
Yeah,
fascinated
that's
by.
that is definitely something that is kinda on our next level for in the future for us that, I definitely wanna look into and definitely being more of another option out there for our soldiers.
Amazing. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that because I'm sure with the quality you deliver, that's going to go a long way. Because I've also heard horror stories when it comes to military moves where they don't take enough care of it because there's so many insurance and everything behind it. Everyone who's military says, yeah, just like take a good inventory, you know what's going to get damaged, and then just have it reimbursed to
Yeah,
you, which
I've
isn't the way
I've
it should be.
I've no, it's definitely not, and that's kinda why I'm kinda slow pace at expanding into that at the moment. You know what I mean? I feel like during our current situation, we have enough to where we can still provide a certain level of service and certain standard because as I started in the first part of the video, you know, our goal is kind of to be more quality and not saying we don't want quantity because we do, but I'm kind of building systems here to where I don't necessarily have to be the, like, getting every single job to survive. And, and like, as we go forward, sure, I wanna add, like, another crew and be able to get out there and expand more, but, you wanna expand at kind of a rate where you could still have that quality control is the point I'm trying to make.
And I love that. It's you want to expand on quantity, but you don't want to forego quality as you do that. Because a lot of people do that. They'll go from 50 moves a month to 80 moves a month, and they don't have everything set up as needed to still be delivering the same quality that they were at 50 moves a month. So I feel exactly where you're coming from, and there's a lot of different things you can do to help with that. And I always love business owners who want to scale that way because sometimes if you just wanted to put more money in your pocket, I'm sure you could. You could take on a lot more moves. You could do a less job,
Oh, yeah. I could
a
definitely.
less good job, but you've chosen not to sort of serve your community. Now, I imagine you're probably a pillar in your community. A lot of people know you now because that's just the way it goes when you're in a smaller area and you're moving all of these families. People must see you all the time and be like, "Yeah, you're with the moving guys."
Yeah, yeah, they definitely do. My truck is very recognizable. My daily driver, because it's got my logos all everywhere, and everyone's like, "Yeah, that's Tucker, the moving guys." And I feel like kind of a funny side story here.
Please.
When we first started, I really didn't know what to call us. I mean, I just kind of threw some little hack job name together and was like, I don't really care, you know. And as time went on, I was like, we really need a name because everyone was just like, call Tucker. He's the moving guy. He knows what he's doing. And then it clicked. It clicked with me one
You said, "There we
afternoon.
go."
Yeah, one afternoon, this one of our customers, she was on the phone with her husband, and she said, "Well, the moving guys are here." And I was like, "That's it. That's gonna be our name, the Moving Guys." You know what I mean? It says so much, but says so little at the same time.
Do you remember
And
what year that change was? Like, how long were you just operating as Tucker, the moving guy? And then at what point did you become the moving guys? I'm testing your memory now. Like, I'm curious at what point that happens.
I mean, it was probably a good 2.5 and maybe 3 years where Uncle Sam's listening. We don't always start off in the best situations, and that's just part of it. You learn these things as you go.
Mhm.
I mean, truth be told, I was kind of a serial entrepreneur, and I mean, I still am. I had tried a few different things, like I said earlier, and how do I say this without sounding too dark? I didn't have a lot of hope that it would succeed at the time. You know what I mean? I had just closed down another failed situation trying to start a startup business. But then when I noticed we were getting traction is when I really started thinking about it. I was like, okay, hey, this is going somewhere. We need to do something. So after that afternoon, and then I went home and I drew up this logo, which is,
Nice.
it's a truck and then the moving guys and the phone number.
It's clean and very
And
simple. That's all
it,
you
it's
need.
so clean. It's all you need. And there's a lot of people that have that name, the moving guys. But in our area, I'm the only one that's trademarked and LLC'd it. So, I
Amazing.
mean, I took off at first it was the Alabama, but I mean I took that off kind of the all the shirts and the Facebook page and all that, and it kind of fit it better.
Nice. I love that.
And
That's a funny
then
little side story of how you got your name. I really do like that.
yeah, it was something, because kind of back to what I said earlier, or maybe I haven't said this yet. Every person I've ever met that's wanted to start a business or something. They said, well, I need this, and this, and I don't know how to do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and just every excuse in the book of why they
Mhm.
wouldn't be a successful business owner. And I said, well, you can have that attitude or you can figure it out. And, you know, so I really just kind of was like, my train of thought just left me. Yikes.
You're saying
I
how
decided
yeah, go ahead.
I decided I was gonna figure it out, you know what I mean? So, you when you start a business, you're not gonna have everything you need, unless you just got some investment account from your parents or family
Mhm,
money.
mhm.
And you know what I mean? You're the beginnings are going to be humble. You know what I
They
mean?
always are. If they're not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. That's part of the joy of
Exactly.
it, is that it's very difficult at the beginning, and I love the saying, which is "fail forward." Business is a lot of this, but life is like this as well. You need to try new things and you need to go into it not 100% prepared because you have that one person who does something, okay, I'm 100% prepared for it, and then they do it. Might they do a better job on the first one? Yeah, sure, but they do it 6 months later than you. And everything you learn from making those mistakes and doing things unprepared makes you so much more resilient as a person. And also, the services you deliver go so much further because you've had trial and error. You've had room to improve and say, okay, I can do this better. I can do that better. So I love that that's the way you do business as well. And serial entrepreneur, would love to briefly touch upon that. I also have had a lot of different businesses, a lot which have failed and a lot which have succeeded. Which have been some of your favorites? Do you still have any currently going on alongside your moving company? Tell me a little bit about some of those.
At the time, I'm just focusing on this moving company. But from the time I was like, I don't know, 18 or 19 to, even now, I guess, prior to the moving guys, I had so many grass cutting businesses that,
Nice.
I never want to cut another piece of grass in my life, even to this day, even haven't done it in a long time. I did that. I did IT work, fixed computers, fixed iPads, and try to sell those um, for 2 years, which I thought this one was going to be the one. I had a screen print and embroidery business.
Hmm.
And I really thought like, hey, this is the one that's going to put me on the map and get me going. And, I didn't know anything, so that ended up didn't work out because I knew sales and marketing a little, but I didn't know about production. I didn't know about credit. I didn't know about paying Peter, robbing Paul. There was just so many things that I didn't know. And, fast forward, I know now, but I didn't know them then. And after that, I kind of gave up on it for a while. And I tried to, I tried to start a hot shot company also, and that worked out, but it didn't work out in a way because when we did it, COVID had just happened, and of course, I didn't put two and two together until after the fact. I was like, "Oh, this is not good."
Hmm.
After investing in a truck, after investing in a trailer,
That's tough.
um, excuse me,
But you didn't look for
and then
excuses. You sort of just went for it.
yeah, we still operated for like a year and a half. Still tried our best, and ultimately, it just didn't work out. And That's that's a lot of things, that I think people try to avoid is those beginners licks. You can't avoid those things. You got to go through the tough things to get to where you wanna be. I mean, unless you are just a perfect human being and you got all the sense and all the money in the world, which I
Which
don't I
which
mean,
no one
that
is.
wasn't me. Exactly. Um, so you just really got to want it. If you want to start a business, if you want to be an entrepreneur and be successful, you are going to get knocked down so many times. You're going to feel like quitting. You're going to get kicked in the face. Nobody's going to believe in you. Um, and I'll never forget. When I finally made it, when I finally was like, "Hey," and a person was like, "I always knew you could do it." And I don't know, at the time, that felt like a kick in the gut. I'm like, "Really? Where were you when I was drowning up change to get gas or eating ramen noodles 7 times a week?" You know what I mean? So if I won't get off on a tangent here because I will, but you got to believe in yourself that it's going to happen because, like I said, no one around you is going to believe in you. The support may or may not be there in some situations. You just have to know, like, hey, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying.
And I'm so glad you shared that because often on this podcast, we just look at the successes behind the moving company and we look at the
Mhm.
nitty and gritty of how did you get to where you are and what can other people draw from this. But what people don't see, which I'm so glad you shared with us today, is all of the failures which came before. Now, were these moving company related failures that came before? Not necessarily, but I'm sure you learned so much from every single business failure that you had which you could then apply to your moving company business, which allowed you to be so much better prepared to actually have your best foot forward. And like you said, it's the road to of entrepreneurship can often be a very lonely journey. And there's a lot of people who are going to tell you, why are you doing this? Uh, it's never going to work out, this, that, and the other. And like you said, you just need a true found north, a sense of belief. Like you said, I'm going to do this or I'm going to die trying. And it sounds like you are a testimonial to that. And people forget about all the failures behind it. No one talks about your embroidery company or your grass cutting or hot shots or whatever it might be, right? But now you are the moving guy in your area. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. And you mentioned earlier in the podcast as well I think you gave me a number. You did 36 military moves in the summer. I'd love to finish up and sort of wrap up a little bit with where you're at now and where you'd like to be. I haven't spoken at all yet about that. How many moves are you guys doing a month? I know you told me you got 6 full-time guys and a lot of different equipment. What are you currently looking at moves a month, more or less?
Now we average anywhere we stay in the market between 20 and 40 moves a month.
Amazing.
Um, and that could be a lot of those are full service moves some months, and then sometimes we get more unloads and loads. And kind of where I want to be in the future is focusing more on bigger moves, like maybe not so much as long distance moves, but I kind of want to hone in on a certain criteria of customer in our area and be the go-to person for this community or that community. And, hopefully having another team and at some point in time getting our own truck as long as the investment is smart at that time. And, just doing anywhere from 60 to 80 moves a month. And I kind of have a plan in my head and then I kind of don't. I mean, I don't want to say I just go with the flow because that's definitely not what it is. But in a sense, you kind of just got to go with the flow. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of business people, they get caught up in, well, where are we going to be 6 months from now? Where are we going to be a year from now? You can't control any of that. Have I've learned. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but only thing you can control is right now and what's in front of you. You can make plans for the future, and that's great, you know. But you just we really want to hone in on being the top service provider for our customers, and you know getting rid of some maybe not doing so much as like loads and unloads, maybe just doing full service moves or kind of wherever the road takes us in a way.
That's amazing, and there's so many good points there. You wanna set goals and you wanna be ambitious, but I like to look at life at, like, 30-day segments at a time. What is it really important I put my time towards in 30 days? I'm gonna set myself goals. Sometimes I blow them out of the water and sometimes I don't, but I don't hold myself up against them, you know? I just move on to the next one, and as long as you're continually improving in whatever facet that is, that's amazing. Now, when you said you do somewhere between 20 and 40 moves a month and you do full service, when you say full service, are you doing white glove? Are you doing packing? And all of that stuff as well, or do you just what does that look like for you?
Well, it's definitely a mixture. It's a mixture of different ones. A lot of times people will already have their packing done, but then there's some cases where, we do the packing. They may also want us to do some unpacking. Um, we offer white glove in a sense. I'm trying to like not rebrand, but add into our brand premium relocation services. So what that means is we're taking customer service to the next level. You know what I mean? We're coming down, putting floor runners down, putting wall protectors up, and a lot of times people just they just kind of will throw a blanket on it, throw some tape on it, and throw it in the truck. But what we do is we really take time to like take care of the people's stuff. with moving quilts and cardboard or whatever material we have. So I know that kind of veers off from the question you answered, but
No, but
you,
I love it. And I think you're the perfect guys for that because, like you said, you have always been from the day you started till now, 7 years down the line, the quality first type of person. And that comes with a premium price point, which of course those clients are willing to pay. But you are the ones who do that. You do it for your cheapest customers who might only be paying a couple $100 for a move. You take really great care of them. And it also translates to when you do those white glove premium long distance or local moves. So I think that's a really, really great play for you. And Tucker, I want to thank you for all of the time and all of the insights you've given myself and
absolutely,
the audience today. It's been truly
absolutely.
amazing. Where can people find you and where can people find the business?
Well, we are on Facebook as the Moving Guys, and then we're on Instagram as the Moving Guys. And our website is themovingguys.co. And I don't have a name for our TikTok page yet. It's kind of just my TikTok. But so that it's Tukker Watson on TikTok if you want to see those. And those aren't really polished content. That's just kind of a lot of bloopers and stuff in there.
And that's a
But
fun
yeah,
thing, which I'd actually recommend to everyone watching right now. I think TikTok is a great sounding board. When you want to do Facebook and Instagram, it's a little bit more professional, right foot forward. But
for
TikTok
sure.
is a little bit more of a sounding board, and it's a great place for it. TikTok rewards you for just putting out as much content as possible, so you can test a lot. Especially if you're someone who's nervous to put content out there, test it through TikTok. See what is enjoyed by the algorithm, and then just post that stuff through to Instagram. I have a very similar situation as you, Tucker, where I don't have it perfectly branded on TikTok, but I'm still posting that stuff through there. So
Absolutely.
amazing. Thank you again for everything,
Yes,
Tucker.
sir.
If you guys are
Absolutely.
in Enterprise or anywhere in and around that area, Tucker is your guy to go to. I'm sure he's probably also the one picking up the phones. You'll speak to him. You might even get lucky enough to have him on one of your moves. So thank you again for all of your time today, Tucker.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.